Well, there's really no way to sugarcoat it. There's really no way around it. You know, uh, when you spend 2 or 3 years beating your chest like I've done about the SEC, and how dominant they are and how much better they are than the other conferences and yada, yada, yada. Uh, you know, you got to take what's coming. So here I am, all you trolls in the comment section that have been riding me about the SEC for the last year and a half. Now's your chance. Yesterday was Black Saturday for the SEC. After week one, I was back on my high horse again about the SEC with Texas A&M's big win over Arizona State, the Gump's big win over Wisconsin. The SEC was 12-1 in week one. The only loss, Vanderbilt was our only loss, but there's no denying what happened yesterday, and it could have been a lot worse. I'll start with the big game, Oklahoma and Tennessee. I really didn't know how this game was going to go. I've really thought for the last 6 months that Tennessee was going to turn the corner this year. You can't keep recruiting like they've been recruiting and not have the results show up on the field. But yesterday was just more of the same from what we've seen out of Tennessee for the last 5 or 6 years. I forget what the actual number is. They said it last night after the game, but Tennessee is something like 1-20 or something in their last 21 games against ranked teams, something like that. It's some ridiculous number. And they just keep inventing new ways to lose. And I'm not trashing Tennessee. This isn't a trash talk video. This is an SEC Crow video. But I honestly feel bad for BBD and Carter. That's one of the worst ways to lose. Dominate the game for 3.5 quarters. Actually, you really didn't dominate for 3.5 quarters. You sort of jumped out to an early lead, and the second and third quarter were pretty much a wash, and then Oklahoma just came back at the end, tied it up, and of course won it in overtime. But heartbreaking for Tennessee fans for sure. Auburn was probably, even though Auburn won, that's probably the worst, most embarrassing performance of the day. You're supposed to be the number 6 ranked team in the country. During the preseason, you Auburn fans crowned yourselves national champions. You gave Jeremy Johnson the Heisman Trophy before one snap was ever played. Jeremy Johnson is the worst quarterback in the SEC, and that's saying a lot because there's not a single NFL quarterback in the SEC right now. Not one. Correct me if Dak Prescott, maybe, but I seriously doubt it. That running style that he has, it's just been proven year after year after year in the NFL that doesn't translate. But there's not a single NFL quarterback in the SEC. But Jeremy Johnson, you're the worst, sir. You're terrible. I don't know if you're colorblind. The announcer on the game yesterday even wondered if you were suffering from vision problems. Auburn in general, you should have lost that game to Jacksonville State. Just embarrassing. Arkansas, and believe it or not, there were a lot of people on the Arkansas train. I've heard people on ESPN, the SEC Network, Fox Sports, different radio shows talking about Arkansas and saying they could finish 7th in the West or they could win the West. Well, they're finishing 7th. You lost to Toledo. Brett Bielema pretty much summed it up after the game when he said he was embarrassed for your fans. What a joke. Missouri barely hangs on to beat Arkansas State. They actually were losing in that game. Florida struggled and was losing at points to East Carolina. I think it's time, and believe me, there is not a bigger SEC homer than Uncle Lou. I've been on, but there's just no, what can you say about yesterday? It was just embarrassing. I don't know if the SEC is getting worse or if the other conferences are catching up. I don't know what, it's got to be that the SEC is just not as good as it was in recent years, because Arkansas State, Toledo, Jacksonville State, East Carolina is at least a respectable program. So Florida's performance yesterday, probably the least embarrassing of the ones I've mentioned. But so anyway, comment section down below. Go ahead and tell me how dumb I am, how terrible the SEC is. Tell me how overrated the SEC is. Talk to me about ESPN bias. There's nothing I really can say today. And if you really want some good entertainment next week, I'm talking Emmy Award-winning stuff. Tune in to the Paul Feinbaum Show Monday. There's going to be people losing their minds on that show. And they'll probably get some phone calls from some Ohio State fans. And anyway, it's going to be entertaining. So if you can't watch it, record it. If you can watch it, watch it. But in Alabama, it's not like you struggled. You looked pretty good yesterday. Derrick Henry almost had 100 yards, but he did get 3 touchdowns. But for God's sakes, can you get a field goal kicker? I mean, it cost you a shot at the national title against Auburn a couple of years back, and your field goal kicker this year is 0 for 4, and not only that. He was 0 for 2 in the first game. So, of course, during Nick Saban's press conference this week, they're going to ask him about it. He should have known that. He should have been prepared for that. But no, he comes out and he goes on this big rant about how people need to be nice to the special teams players, and it really hurts their feelings that people are talking bad about the field goal kicker and blah, blah. Give me a break. I'm sorry. Give me a break. This is big-time Division I football. Now, there's a line you don't cross. I know sometimes these people go nuts and there's death threats against these kids and stuff like that, and that's ridiculous. But criticism is fair game. And let's face it, your field goal kicker was 0 for 2 after the first game. You're going to get asked about it. He's going to get criticized. Second game, 0 for 2 again. He's now 0 for 4 on the season. Get a field goal kicker. You have the number 1 recruiting class in the nation, year in, year out. Take one of those scholarships that you're giving to some fat, overrated defensive lineman and find a decent field goal kicker, okay? It's not that hard. It's really not. Go to any Division I campus in America, go to soccer practice, line them up, and let them kick field goals. Pluck the best one out of the group, slap a helmet and a chin strap on him, and you got your field goal kicker. I don't understand it. And it's going to cost y'all a game. It's going to cost y'all a game because you know what? Field goal kickers are a lot like relief pitchers in Major League Baseball or cornerbacks in professional football. It's a mental thing. You miss 2, 3, 4 in a row, you start thinking you can't do it. Do you really want this field goal kicker kicking a game-winning field goal with 4 seconds to go in a game? Because it's going to happen at some point. It might happen this week. You're playing Ole Miss. They've scored 150 points so far in total in their 2 games. They're averaging 70-something points a game. They beat you last year. I hope you Gumps don't think Ole Miss is going to get off the bus in Alabama and be afraid or be scared. I've told you before it's not going to happen. And then we all know what's happening in a couple of weeks when you come to Athens and catch a beat down. And for God's sakes, the field goal kicking situation's got to get worked out. And South Carolina, you still suck. Oh, good morning.